this morning, I thought what I'd do is from time to time at Dharma Field, I would just do a Q&A session, question and answer. And so I thought I would try that just to see how that works on Zoom. I don't know why it wouldn't. We do have questions at the end of talks and things. And so I don't know if this will work quite as well here as it does when we're sitting in the room together live. But just thought I'd give it a try. And so that's what I'm going to ask. So if any of you have questions, you can start thinking right now. And if you don't, I do have a backup plan here. So, but I'll give you a chance. Once the questions start, usually there's plenty of questions and good questions. And this is helpful for me to get a sense of where you are. And also it helps us to range outside, or at least it helps me anyway, to range outside of places where I might go myself. Though often it is to revisit things I've said in the past that maybe aren't so clear. So anyway, with that, I'll just leave it to you.
Good. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so something that's been happening or does happen consistently, constantly, and that is for a while last winter, I went and I actually did some real deep internal contemplation about where's the me? Where's the me? Where is this me? And I actually couldn't, like you've said and others have said, I couldn't find the me. And yet there's this sense of me.
Mm-hmm.
Sense of me, but when I went to see where is this me, there wasn't a me. And I was just wondering if you could comment about that, if that makes any, I don't know if other people have this or not, but this is something that it's just there, this sense of me, even though I may not be thinking I'm a male, I'm this, I'm that, or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the center of what appears to be our consciousness, or the center of our awareness, that I'm the focal point of it. Yeah, that's pretty usual, and it's quite powerful, and so it leaves us assuming that that there is someone here who's the center of it all. That's obtained. Of course, we realize, well, I know there's many other centers just like me and that sort of thing. Most of us will at least grant that, though some don't. But yeah, this is a very normal way of feeling and understanding, and it certainly isn't anything that's foreign to me, as it isn't really foreign, I don't think, to anyone really. But it was a good exercise you did there. It's from time to time, it might help if you have a moment where you could slow down and you have this strong sense of myself here, who's taking all this in, who's hearing and tasting and feeling and thinking and all of this. Yeah, well, what is that? And who is that? It doesn't hurt from time to time just to look at that. Don't be frustrated if you can't put anything there. What are you going to put there? It's not necessary to put something there. I've long ago given up on that. Well, not given up. I could, at some point, I could see that there just isn't any other end to this thing here, and so that eventually we can wake up to that. We can realize that the full vibrant reality that's taking place here. There isn't any thinker, any feeler, any taster, any seer. But there's the seeing, and there's the tasting, and the thinking, and the feeling. And at some point, we can wake up to this. And the question is like, well, what is that I'm seeing when I look in a mirror? And I see myself, don't I? Isn't that me? Well, whatever you're looking at in that mirror is not something you've seen before. We think, well, yes, but that's me. I recognize me. And, and yeah, gradually, sure, over the years, I change. I'm not quite like I was 20, 30, 50 years ago, but that's still me. Well, yes, and we'll think that way. That's the way we'll put it together. But right now, as you taste this moment or see see that image in the mirror or anything else for that matter. Just something familiar like your own hand or something like this, or your house or someplace you visit and you go back there every year or something like that. And by golly, there it is. It's still there. It's changing a little bit. Well, they cut down that tree that used to be there. You know, but this seems to be what's taking place. And it isn't that it's wrong, all these kinds of observations or feelings. I mean, there they are. But it's just the confusion that's in this picture is the kind of blind assumption that we make that there's actually something here. There's someone here. That this is happening to. That's the part that is just strictly imagined. It's put together out of just out of our mental constructs, out of our thinking. And so this isn't to say that there isn't a me or that there isn't this. Well, me, at this point, for me now, I can still use the word, but I have no idea what me is supposed to refer to, but I know how English works and I need to use it at times. Or I need to use it. But even though I have no idea what I refers to or me. And I also realize now that it isn't really necessary, though our language requires it, and I'm still able to function in such a way that I can still use these terms. but I really have to, when I slow down and look at it, I have no idea what that refers to. But this is communicating within this broad experience that we're all living out. But we're not living it out as me or as something separate or divided from anything else. Nothing is like this. That is not in the experience. And even though we see things divided, I see separate individuals, I see different places, I see different times, and things of this sort. But this is the conceptualized world. This is the world that arises out of consciousness. This is what consciousness is the, what can I say, the awareness, this is conscious awareness, the awareness of the vast variety of things, too many that we can't even begin to count or even imagine that we could count. All the different tastes and flavors and thoughts and feelings and all the various things that we can pick them out and then speak of them as individuated things. But if we look very carefully at any one of those things or thoughts or feelings, it's just a little fragment of something and it just passed by quickly, but there it was and now it's gone. All of those things, the broken up world like that seems real enough. And it is real enough. It's, we call it small r reality, but it's ultimately not as real as we think. Because if you take a look at any one of those little fragments, whatever that could be, because as soon as you take hold of some little taste or a feeling or a thought or an object of some sort, we begin to realize, well, wait a minute, where does this start and where does this stop and where's the beginning of it and the end? And it seems to be blending into other, if we start to just settle down and stare at this for a while, we begin to realize that this is another aspect of and it's far more real, or what can I say, compelling than the compelling enough images and thoughts of the individuated things that we see and hear and feel and think and relate to and all of that. But it's not that any of this is wrong, and it's not even that seeing that these things aren't as broken out as we otherwise might think. Neither of these are any more real than the other, exactly. But in fully awakening to what's taking place here, we realize that this is, well, the word that is often used is just simply thus. Here it is. And this goes back to, and I talked a few weeks ago on a Sunday about, we're always here. It's always thus. It is always just this. I brought this out finally in the Dogen Busho studies that we're doing on Wednesday nights. because it just occurred to me this might be another way of looking at it to make it more clear as to what I'm pointing at here. The conceptualized experience that we so easily relate to and think is the limit of everything that's taking place. I'm here and everything else is out there. That basic breakout of the world and of experience. That's usually it, you know, for us. And we think that that's real. But that's the conceptualized world. That's consciousness. And it is a function of mind in totality. And but that isn't all there is to it. When we begin to wake up to what is really taking place here, there's something else that's taking place. And this world, the conceptualized world, shows nothing but change. Everything is changing. Every fragment, every little thing you can pick out. Some will seem to just totally disappear. Other things will seem to come out of nowhere. Thoughts and feelings, whatever. And then, but objects as well, and all of that. But that's the conceptualized world, and that is really consciousness itself. Of course, we have an idea that, well, no, I am real, and I have a body, and this is the basis of reality. Now I have a brain, and my brain is producing yeah, this is kind of the going understanding today. But it doesn't make any sense. And consciousness, as it has been now for the last 40 years of research in this area and looking at things very intently in this way, consciousness still remains a mystery. And it's even spoken of in that way, even though how mysterious can it be? This is, we're intimately familiar with it. It's, you know, every conscious moment, this is it. It's just that we keep thinking that there's a thing there, that there's an it, or a me or self or something like that, that's generating this, or that I am the one that's the recipient of all of it. That's how we keep seeing. We don't realize that this is consciousness itself, is packaging the world in this way. But there's something else that's taking place. So this isn't what people can awaken to, is that this isn't the whole of reality. There's something else here that isn't changing. And the way I finally spoke of it in the Bouchot class a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago anyway, just a different way of looking at this, is that, okay, so we have this world that's constantly changing, and everything that we point to or think about or think is real and that we can relate to, it's nothing but change. Yeah, even though we believe it persists in some way, like I persist, or the chair I'm sitting in persists. It's the chair I sat in yesterday, and on we go. Yeah, and yet still we'll say yes, but everything's still, yeah, we can kind of see that. But there's an aspect to what is being experienced here that doesn't change, that is always thus. And this is what we miss. And it's hard to point to this because it isn't an object, there isn't it, but still, this is something we taste. And finally, I just used the example of, well, one of the things that we experience is it's time. It's all broken out into this and that, and there's future time and past time, and, you know, and then there's even this present moment, which doesn't, you know, it's already gone now. But well, there's this other aspect here that isn't changing. And what is that? Well, it's not this. It's now. It's just simply now. It is always now. This does not change. And this is, I don't want to say far more real, but it's real in a different sort of way. And this belongs to the absolute, the realm of absoluteness, not the realm of relativity and change. But it is something that is directly known and experienced continuously, that it is always now. It's never been then. And I even alluded to, I won't spend any time here now, but just to point out for those of you who are more maybe mathematically inclined or whatever, but this is what Bell's theorem finally produced, because there was a big debate back probably from the 1930s all the way up into the 60s, where they were having a problem with here and now. There they were having a problem with here, and because there seemed to be only here. And some of the arguments that were holding up rather well. And so John Stuart Bell in 1964, he wanted to get to the bottom of this, and using mathematics no more complicated than arithmetic. So if you can trust the rules of arithmetic, addition and subtraction and multiplication, if you trust that, he showed in no uncertain terms that actually what he ended up proving, much to his chagrin, he was trying to prove the opposite, but he proved that there's just here. and which of course conceptually makes no sense at all. Yeah, because in the conceptual realm, if we're still locked into just thinking this is the total of reality is the conceptual, where I'm here and you're out there and everything, you know, all that stuff we were talking about before, the coming and going and everything's changing. Yeah, that's the conceptual realm. But he stumbled on something that showed, and they've run experiments here now since 1964, all the way up till today, and the experiments getting more and more sophisticated, but they all bear out Bell's, it says inequality it's called, but never mind about that. But it still holds up that it seems like we live in a non-local universe. In other words, there's just this one locality, it's right here, and which makes no sense. And it isn't like then that we aren't real or that there isn't space and time and stuff like this. And the ancients who also woke up to this, they didn't have the sophistication of Bell and modern mathematics and this sort of thing, but intuitively, or I don't even know if I'd call it intuitively, you can see this directly. That, and of course we do experience this, we all experience that it's just now. This is not something strange. Perhaps all of you have at one time or another just considered that for a moment, that it's always now. It's never then. How could it possibly be then? And yet in our thinking about it and conceptualizing the world, and we spray it out and spread it out into time, and there was then, the past then, and or then in the future, you know, when we get there, you know, we think like this, and this seems very real to us. And it's real enough. Again, even the ancients, they wouldn't deny this time, but at the same time, it's ultimately not what's going on. There's something else taking place here. And so in this world of the conceptual, yeah, our sense of self is very strong. It's the center of it all. And it is, you know, taking hold of all of this and experiencing all of this. But that isn't the whole of what is being experienced. And if we just look at it in a kind of a temporal way, right? Well, last week and this coming Wednesday too, we'll be looking at, in Busho, we'll be looking at when Dogen talks about temporal conditions in relation to Buddha nature, as the way he relates to it. So we're looking at it in terms of time and with temporal considerations and that sort of thing. But all of this is taking place in the conceptual. It is in the world that we can think about and talk about and get ideas about and exchange concepts about and this sort of thing. But there's something else that doesn't belong to this world, or well, it actually holds that world of conception. But that is our perceptual experience, which is our direct experience of reality itself. That is always available to us. And the perception, your perception right now, I'm not talking about perception of objects now, because there aren't objects as such in the perceptual realm. But the perception, your perception is no different than that of a Buddha or one who's awake to it. That's just simply one who realizes what the immediate direct experience is. And it is of the perceptual. And it is of what we might call now, sometimes called the eternal now or something, because it's always now. And this isn't to deny then or the past or the future, but it's just that the past and the future and all the things broken out in space and time around us, objects and thoughts and feelings, whatever we might encounter. These are real enough, but we're at this point beginning to understand the nature of their reality. And it's quite different than what we otherwise naively think. We think these things are absolutely real, that there is a hand in front of my face when I hold it up like that. We think that there, you know, that's it. There is a hand, and right now it's, you know, about a foot away from my face as I hold it up like that. So there's that space too. And all of this, for us, we think this is it. This is real. And that's it. And what it is that we can wake up to by waking to the actual perceptual experience, we realize, no, that isn't it as such. Can't throw it away, because it appears to be that way. And the appearances are real enough. But that's not the limit of what we experience. But our very strong sense of self is right there in that realm of the conceptual. It's right at the center of it, we could say, because it appears that way. But there's something else to notice. This isn't something to think about or to figure out, or, you know, it doesn't require your intellect. It doesn't require your conceptualizing. It just requires that you pay very careful attention to what is going on without talking to yourself. Because as you talk to yourself or you think this or that about it, you're putting it back into the conceptual. And this is what we do all the time with everything. This is why we don't wake up. And as Dogen Zenji says, I've given this to you many times now because I'm glad he said it. It's a very good point. He said, the reason we don't wake up is because we don't let go of our views. Totally. Let them go. You're not going to disappear. Well, you're not, you haven't really appeared in the first place. You doesn't refer to anything really. But in order to see this, you can't be hanging on to something. But it isn't like all of a sudden with awakening, now your body vanishes, and what the floor, the mirror, whatever it is, you may be, you know. Anyway, you know, things, the world of the conceptual, the world of this and that, the samsaric world of birth and death and coming and going, this doesn't disappear. But we now are getting a glimpse of its true nature. Which is quite different from the one that we naively believed, you know, that this is real and solid and substantial. Nagarjuna says, no, these things are empty of substantiality. There's the appearances, they appear to be, but they really don't have any substantiality to them. They are not things unto themselves, no matter what it is, including you. Whether we're talking about you physically or you as a what, as some kind of a spirit or a, you know, a mental composite of whatever, it doesn't matter. Any individuated and singled out thing that can be named and labeled, and whatever it is, it's lacking substantiality. It is empty of that. It doesn't mean that it's nothing. You can't say it's nothing because here it is. It's appearing. That's why my teacher too, Katagiri Roshi, you know, he used to say to us, you know, something once in a while, he'd just point out, you know, reality, here it is. What is it? Here it is. What is it? Now, what isn't? And we were talking about that a little bit too in the Busho class last week. Dogen is talking about this in Busho. And it isn't just simply, you know, the interrogative, like, you know, what is it? We're looking at what it is. And of course, is even the wrong word. It isn't anything at all in particular. Isness is part of the mental construct, or being, part of the mental construct. But nevertheless, here it is. This isn't nothing, here it is. That's another exercise I give her. I draw your attention, I'll point that out. Just, this isn't nothing. You might wonder, what do you mean this isn't? This isn't blankness. It's how obvious can it be? This isn't nothing. Then you can say, well, but so what? Well, wake up to it. Realize that, yeah, here it is, but it doesn't have any substance. But it's going to be the perceptual. And your perception is no different than that of a Buddha. It's through the perceptual that we wake up, that we can see what is really taking place. It won't come through the conceptual, through the intellectualizing and the conceptualizing. And perhaps it sounds like right now that I'm being so intellectual and conceptual and all. Well, if you're really following what I'm saying, I'm not at all actually here. I'm just cautioning you to look very carefully at whatever it is that we conceptualize and form in our minds and think is real and all of that. And if we do that, at some point we might wake up to the fact that it's lacking all that. Then we can begin to see what the actual perceptual experience is, or what the nature of reality itself is, including the reality of the objects that form you, including, say, your own body or mind or whatever. So, okay, so so that's you say you're feeling that and you're sensing that, and what is it? Yeah, well, I don't know. Did I help? And Daniel, and what I said here?
Yes, you helped a lot. There's
Okay.
some real jewels and nuggets there that help
Okay.
just, for me to let go of my understanding of the old way or something.
Yeah, yeah. Just notice when you are getting caught up in your pat answers or your habitual ways of thinking, or even novel ways of thinking. It doesn't involve thinking at all, or the conceptual at all. Not if we want to wake up, if that's our interest. And don't even think about waking up either, because in doing that, you just form that into something, which isn't what it is. And yeah, so you can just relax. But go about your daily life paying very careful attention without thinking, oh, I got to pay careful attention now. Oh, here's a piece of paper. Don't do that. just relax and be attentive. And of course, that doesn't mean you can be attentive to all the details. I can't, you know. I don't know anyone who could, but whatever's coming into view or thought or whatever, just be aware of those things passing. Some of those things you might have to hold on to for a moment if you're going to be cooking dinner or whatever. You want to give that some careful thought and attention. And yeah, but we can do all of that and cook a very fine dinner, very nutritious dinner, without believing that it is something. It's not nothing. We can go that far. In fact, it's best if we do go that far. But to say that it is something unto itself, no, we've gone too far. But it's just a matter of seeing that. It's not a matter of thinking that or believing that or something. I'm not trying to give you anything here to believe. I'm just trying to give you some sense of where it is that we get caught up, where we get confused, where we're misreading the nature of what's actually being experienced here. And that's all you have to do. Just if you can finally see that, there isn't anything in particular you need to do, except for what the moment might call for. But that'll be the moment that'll dictate that.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Very
Yeah.
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess my question is just piggybacks onto Daniel's. When strong emotions arise, it seems like that reinforces the sense of self. So when strong emotions arise, how best to practice with that and to see through that?
Well, stop practicing with it.
Okay.
Nothing changes here. Just practice in the way that we practice, which is just to settle the mind and pay attention. And if you notice yourself latching on to or a fear or anything at all, just realize that this is just awareness. Just realize that that's taking place. And you might also get a sense that this isn't really necessary. And as for, I remember years ago when I had cancer and I was I was only 32 years old, but I'd finally started to understand this practice about a year before that. And I'd been practicing for some years before that, but I didn't know what I was doing. And now I was beginning to get some sense of what this is and how to practice. And I noticed that when I found out I had cancer, and it was pretty serious at the time, it didn't look like I was going to be around too much longer, though I'm still here 40 years later. But I didn't know that at the time, and the doctors didn't know that. But anyway, so fear would come up in my mind, and sometimes even while I was, practicing, I was sitting zazen, and all of a sudden, just this fear would rise and worry about me. What's going to happen to me? And am I going to have a painful death? Is this going to be awful? All the various things, and about my family and how they're going to be hurt, and feel different things like this would come up in my mind. But what I had learned by that time was that at this point I'm just imagining things. I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know that I'm going to die from this, even though the prognosis was pretty strong that I wasn't going to be around too much longer at that time. But I just stayed with it, came back to where I am right now. I'm sitting in the Zendo or whatever might be going on, and just come back to this and come back to it without saying to myself, I'm sitting in the Zendo. I started learning by that time. I think I was catching on. I don't talk to myself about I am sitting in the Zen, but just awareness that I'm here. And right now I'm breathing. The stuff I was worried about were things I was imagining in the future, in the near future, within a few months, a year. And, but it's not here. It's not now. So I'm projecting that. And I had learned at this time, finally, just to recognize that for what it was. It's just me kind of going on in my mind about something that isn't real at all. And it isn't real at that point because it's in the future. The future isn't here. The future is a mental construct. I don't even mean that it's a mental construct of mine that I was creating, because, well, what is it that's creating this? This was all becoming very apparent to me at this point. And what we can learn to do is just to stay with where we are, with what is taking place here. Now, there could be things in the moment we have to do. Occasionally I had to go up and take my chemotherapy. And then later I had some radiation as well. But this was, and I didn't want to do those things. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, if you don't do these things, you're surely going to die, and fairly soon. So I did them. And even though I didn't want to do them, I just did them. And so just take care of the moment and do what you need to do, or do what it seems like you need to do, even if you don't want to do it. So it's just kind of like that, just to recognize when we get so totally caught up in our imagined situation, and to the extent that we're no longer here. But right here and right now, this is where we can act. This is where we're living. And this is what we need to take care of. But we rarely give our attention to this. Most of the time we are completely lost in the future, or we're dragging around our past with all kinds of regrets or whatever, or wishing, oh, that was a great vacation last year, I'd want to go back there, all sorts of things. But we're not here. And it doesn't mean that we should never think of the future or the past, that's part of being here. But we don't need to live there, and we don't need to be fussing about things to do in this place where we never live. We're always here now. But in being here now, we can awaken to that, including the possibilities of what might, look at our political situation today that all of us are facing. At least I know some of you are outside the States here, I know. So, but even so, whatever goes on here is probably going to affect you. It will affect you. But where are we politically? Who are we going to have as a president next year? Are we going to have a president? What's going on? I mean, things are really up in the air here. And I certainly don't know how things are going to unfold, but I do know that I can watch my mind, and when I start winging out a little bit of fear or whatever, and worry, I'll start to recognize, and I know what's going on there. I'm imagining something, and just come back to here and now. Now, of course, when I say imagining something, yeah, there's possibilities that could arise. Well, yeah, it's good to be aware that such possibilities could arise, or some variation of it. That's fine, but I can take care of it now. I'll have to take care of it now because this is the only place where we can do this. So it's really a matter of that, just coming back to this moment right here, right now, and then we can discover that this is where we can take care of things. So I don't know. Does that help at all, Mike?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, would it be helpful to just ask, when strong emotions arise, just ask, what is this? Not with the idea of coming up with a solid answer, but just to look at it and see that.
Yeah, well, what I can tell you what it is. It's taking the constructed world and some aspects of it and seeing it in terms of substantiality or non-emptiness, as
Right.
Nagarjuna might put it, rather than seeing it in its true nature, which is empty of any kind of substantiality, and then desiring to have these things go a particular way, whether it's to block this, to stop that, I don't want this to happen, I don't want it near me, or it's like, oh, I got to get that, or I got to bring myself to that or to that person or whatever. And that's what it is. And it's attachment, and it's attachment to views. But if we can learn not to hang on to these things, it doesn't mean to ignore ignore the people we love or whatever, or the ones that we're fearing or whatever. But it doesn't mean to hang on to these various things with the mistaken view that there's something here that we need to do about it in terms of, well, especially if it's involving another person or something we need to do to them or for them or whatever. Be very careful of these things. Watch for intentional action. The Buddha warned us of this sort. That's karma. And we're out of our intent, our desire to bring about certain ends. We now entangle ourselves in all kinds of ways, most of which are total, well, virtually all of it really is kind of illusory, but we'll get completely entangled in such things. And the emotion is coming from thinking that this is real and there's something I got to do about it. What you got to do, I don't know about it, but just take care of this moment here, bring yourself back here. And then you can take care of this moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, but the emotion and all that, that's just seeing these things which lack substantiality, seeing them as substantial. And this is very ordinary. There's nothing wrong with this exactly. The mistake comes when we act out of that, or we really believe that. Things look substantial to me too, even though, and sometimes I'll kind of forget that, that ultimately they're not. And I might treat them in a little bit, but I start to notice that and I can back off. But it still means I'll get out of the way of a car if it's coming at me. I'm not going to jump out of a 10th story window, stuff like that. Well, not just like that, but just even with very ordinary things. But I try not to go too far without realizing and seeing. And we can see that this is empty of substantiality. But it is not to be ignored, the stuff that appears here. This is very important because it sounds like we're dismissing. A lot of people misunderstand emptiness and interpret it as the word was shunyata, but interpreting that as nothingness. And that is not at all what Nagarjuna was talking about. You can't ignore it. This isn't nothingness. That's what I was saying earlier too. If you just notice thus, that this isn't nothing. It's thus. The problem we fall into is that we think it's something. And you can't really say it's something. But in our conceptualizing mind, well, then it's nothing. No, obviously it's not nothing. I mean, here it is. Well, then it's something. No. Look more carefully. You realize you can't say it is. And so, and what we can do, and even with my practice, I mean, I've seen this 40 years. I've understood this, but still, I'll catch myself latching onto something, being pulled. But little by little, better and better, I can catch myself before I go too far with this stuff. But it doesn't mean I'll ever ignore it. Or there's other people caught up in this and that. And for them, it's very important. I have to honor that and pay very careful attention to that. I don't want them to hurt and to be confused or whatever. So a lot of things to take care of here. But, and it isn't even in terms of them or me or something like this, because we can see when we're really seeing this, we're not even seeing things in terms of me or me separate from them. It's just this one life. And it's really just this one mind. And we can live, out of that understanding. At least have that in the background there. To the extent that we're awake, we don't lose sight of the whole. of all of this, and that we're living this life. It's not your life or my life. It is the life of just us. So, but I'm probably going farther when we need to go right now. But it is a matter, Mike, of just kind of bringing yourself back, realizing what you're doing in your mind, and that it isn't helpful to grab onto this or to, imagine the worst about that or whatever else. Just take care of what needs to be done in this moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, I am Pete, and I've not met you in person or anybody else in this community for that matter. I've just recently begun practicing since, I think, in earnest, COVID-19 started, and I'm a good friend of Bruce and Jonas's, and for another community, and they've shared your practice with me. And it's been very, very helpful for a lot of reasons. And I wanted to mention first that what you said a few weeks ago about how one thing like we have to realize is that this is the situation we've always been in. And with regards to COVID and our other like social problems, I feel that I'm seeing that manifest a lot, and it's been useful insight. But I wanted to ask you briefly about the difference between seeing and believing, especially as it concerns practice and like the courage to continue practicing when one doesn't feel that they completely see what it is that they feel that they're supposed to. And I know that that sounds sticky, but I feel at times that in my practice, I have seen, manifest like many of the things that that are spoken about here, and many of the things that like we want to wake up to. And I think that seeing those things, that's given me the courage to even continue practicing in the first place. However, there are times, when practice does just feel like pain, and it does just feel like obstinate and stuck. And I know at one point in Meditation Now and Never, you say, like, if you're stuck, sometimes it's good just to stay stuck. But I question that when I do so, that I'm operating out of this deeply founded belief that I'm going to wake up. And I want to know what you might make of that, like kind of vetting oneself for that like belief, like I'm going to wake up. I believe I'll wake up if I just continue this practice. And I wonder if that's helpful or not, or how to notice it and how to drop it. But yeah, that's all.
Yeah, well, that isn't helpful, Pete, to think that I'm going to wake up. First of all, it sounds like you're lacking something, which is awakeness, which isn't the case. This is already yours. You already have the direct perceptual experience of a Buddha, of an awakened one. There's nothing missing here. So it isn't a matter of you obtaining something that you don't have now. You already have this capacity. All of us do. And so you can kind of relax about that. But it is just simply a matter of coming to realize what it is that you're actually experiencing, as opposed to what you're thinking, as opposed to what you're putting together in a conceptual frame. And that's what belief is too, by the way. You were asking about that and how that differs from, I think you asked how that differs from, was it seeing or just seeing? And the difference is that, well, the seeing, if I were writing it, this is referring to the perceptual. It's not seeing anything in particular, but it is just really seeing the true nature of what is taking place here, which isn't at all what it is in terms of what we think about it, or how we see it conceptually, or have ideas like that. And this is what belief is. Belief is strictly in the conceptual. It's in what we think about things, and it happens to be what we think is true or real. This is what belief is. But since it's always involved with the conceptual, it's never latched on to anything that's actually true or real, ultimately. And so that's where we're lost. And but the practice, in terms of you're kind of expressing is a very common way of approaching this, where people think, well, if I do this practice, then eventually I will acquire this ability, or maybe I will wake up, or something like this. Or in your case, maybe I want assurances here that I will wake up, and well, and through this practice. Well, it isn't through this practice that we wake up. It is, this practice is living out of awakeness itself right from the very start. You're actually even doing that now. It's just that you don't know that. You don't know what that is. You don't recognize it. We are always living a genuine, real, and true life, but most, or very often at least, probably in most cases, we're just confused about it is all. So in terms of the practice, if you want to believe that, well, if I continue to practice, I'm assuming you're thinking maybe sitting in Zazen, which isn't easy to do, to keep coming back to that day by day, every day. And sometimes maybe it seems kind of boring, or it's painful, or any number of things, come to us about that. But if you just stay with this and come back to it, and don't think about what you're getting from this practice, eventually you can begin to realize not just what this is, this practice. You can begin to realize the nature of just this itself, which is free of all the things that we otherwise disturb ourselves with, the graspables, the things that we take hold of, that we try to arrange, that we try to get something from, or that we try to push away, all of that sort of thing. That begins to fade away. That begins to move into the background for us. And where our focus now is just simply on being here, which involves a great deal, at least at the beginning, especially when we start to realize what we're doing, it involves just paying very careful attention to your own mind, and the grasping, and the longing, the loathing, the desiring, the fearing, the anger, and whatever that comes up in your own mind, and the ideas that you might have about this practice, or about anything else or anyone else. You start to recognize that it's there, that we're carrying on with this, and we believe, that there's something to this, what I'm thinking or feeling. Gradually, we can begin to see through this, and you realize that whatever it is you're taking hold of there ultimately isn't what's unfolding here. Ultimately, what's unfolding here, you already know, but we don't pick up on that knowledge, or what it is that we truly know, because we're locked onto what we think. We're locked onto the jabbering mind that's telling us. We're going over it in our own mind, maybe in our own voice, talking to ourselves about what this means, or what I should be doing or I shouldn't be doing. I think you use those words too, that should, and this isn't about should or shouldn't, or when I sit down, I should have a quiet mind and a settled mind. And well, why should you? And it's possible at some point, yeah, that the mind will settle down and quiet down. If we keep this up, maybe, yeah, perhaps gradually over time, they'll become the settledness of that mind. You'll find it easier and more frequently. Yeah, sure, maybe. But if you keep thinking that way, you can have a hard time, finding that. And it isn't a matter of finding it even. It finds you, just start settling down. But watch that noisy mind, that grasping mind, that anxious mind, and that mind that thinks it should be this or I should be that. Just watch that mind. You don't need to engage it. And it isn't helpful. That keeps us locked again in the conceptual. It's not allowing the pure perceptual, which is always ongoing. It doesn't make it easy to notice that, because we're engaged in reaching for this or reaching for that as an idea or a thought or even a gripped thing of some sort. So I don't know, does that help you, Pete?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Good. Well, it's good to see you, Pete. Hope to see you again. Let's see, then Bill.
Hi, Steve. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Early in your talk, you raised in my mind a question that has been there that I hadn't thought about for a while. It just came up again this morning while you were talking. And it is, it seems as though I, or we, have been born into a world that we are blind to. Why? Is that a cosmic joke or a trick?
Yeah, good question.
and if the Buddha had never been, would we be interested in awakening?
Oh, I think so. I don't think that this is something that's just unique to one man that lived 2,500 years ago. But though we certainly owe a lot to the Buddha and to many others as well, who either influenced by the Buddha or not, who have found their way to this. This isn't necessarily unique to Buddhism. This is we're talking about awakening to the perceptual reality that we all experience directly. We all experience it directly, equally, with the Buddha and with the most deluded people we can think of. And but it is a matter then of just settling down to this, quieting down, and paying attention. As for being born into this world, that's an appearance. It looks that way. Ultimately, there isn't anything that's the world of the conceptual. Everything in it is born or created, and much of it seems to persist either briefly or for a long duration, and then it goes out of existence. Everything is like everything you can name or touch or think or feel or taste is like this, or think. Did I say that? And but that's in the conceptual world. It's like that. So things are born, or they're made, or whatever, and they come, and then they go. This is a samsaric world of birth and death, coming and going. And the Buddha, he described himself when he referred to himself. He didn't describe himself, but he just referred to himself as Tathagata, meaning coming and going thus. But that thus means as this world actually is unto itself, without our mentally constructing it in some particular way. The world itself. And what is that? Well, it has the appearance of coming. It has the appearance of going. Norm likes to point out, our teacher, Katagiri Roshi, used to say, looks like coming, looks like going. And so it looks like birth, looks like death, looks like we're born into this world. And again, that's real enough. This is a smaller reality. It's not like, oh, no, that's wrong. No, I would never say that. It would be foolish to say that, because it's certainly, we've all been born. And it at least given the appearances of this world, and we're all persisting now. I hope if we're listening to this, and then we can, the thing that fills us with dread is that, well, we know, as Socrates says, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. So most of us are pretty well aware of that. We're like all the others, the millions that have gone before us that are no longer with us. And so it's inevitable that's going to happen to me too. Yeah, in this samsaric world, yes, that's how it is. But again, that isn't the whole picture here. This immediate experience, which is just now, and it is only now, it's never then, it's never off in the future. This doesn't come or go. It is always thus. This too is an aspect of what is taking place here. Were that not the case, then the world of coming and going itself could not, it just wouldn't, this would be wink out time, this would be nothingness. But that clearly isn't what is experienced here. But we can see this. I'm not trying to hand you something here that I want you to believe. There's nothing really much to believe about it. But we can see that it is just like this. And the problem that we have is, you want to know, why do we get caught by this, and why are we taken by this world that isn't even really real ultimately? Well, it's because, and we can all see that the objects that are appearing here in our mind, or that seem to be out there, I'm looking at a couple of microphones here in front of me, and you know, in the screen, and all of you, and you're the same. You're looking presumably at a screen now or whatever. But these are compellingly real to us, and we all know that and taste it and feel it. And there's a good reason why, you know, and it seems that all of our senses are working in concert to give us the rounded impression of stuff. We not only see it out there, but we hear it there, and all of that, and we feel it, you know. And so this is a pretty powerful, you know, experience, but it is illusory, which can be realized if we just look at it very carefully. Just sit with it, settle it down, you know, settle down. Within that whole question about why were we born here and where are we coming, where are we going, this stops being an issue. And I've just written a book. Well, it was actually supposed to come out now in the next week or two, but it got, because of COVID, it's been pushed back to October. I hope no later than that, but that's the date they gave me now. Anyway, but in that book, so when it comes out, it's called The Grand Delusion. And when it comes out, I deal with this a very central sort of way in that book. You know, kind of a general way, but it's very central to what I'm discussing in that book. So I don't know, did I help you there at all, Bill, or any other question tied to that? Or?
Every bit helps. Thank you.
Okay.
I look forward to the book. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much.